All right, welcome back to another training edition of Profit Pro Plus, and today we are going to discuss one of the most critical elements of the program, and that is taking inventory or taking stock in the inventory functionality. So let's dive right in. All right, here we are in the inventory page, and let's review a couple of things that have happened in the program since maybe some of the last training that you've seen. First and foremost, we've gone through and edited our list to make sure that we only have the products that our restaurant is currently using right now. Additionally, we have put in all of our GL code numbers for our accounting reference. Now, this is important because for any and all GAAP or general accounting practices, GL codes are assigned to the unique inventory items that you buy so that all of those items can be put into their appropriate buckets as far as their cost center in your P&L. That can be done real simply just by revisiting this really quick. We go to our edit key on any inventory item and you can see this opportunity for a GL code. Now there are industry standard GL codes, but there's also lots of individual GL codes that each individual company uses or sub GL codes that they use. So that's going to be predicated based on your specific accounting practices. Nonetheless, in your export functionality, once you take inventory, you'll be able to put all of those GL codes in sequence and be able to sort your inventory after you take it and get that to your accounting team or use it for your accounting purposes. Let's close out real quick. And now let's jump into how we take inventory. So up here in the black header bar, I've got the take inventory icon highlighted. I'm going to click on that. One really important element to discuss when taking your first inventory. All inventories must have bookends. The first time you take inventory in the Profit Pro Plus program, you're going to have to put in a beginning and an ending inventory. So basically the sequence should work like this. Once all your recipes are in the system and all your inventory items are in the system, you'll be ready to create a start date. That start date is going to be a range of time that you're going to incorporate your invoices, your sales, etc. And because of that, whatever the start date is where you're going to have to retroact your inventory. If you have the previous month's inventory written down or in a different program, you can simply put it in here, save it, and then do your end of period or end of cycle inventory on a different day. And we'll walk through all that a little bit more in detail right now. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to create a new inventory. I can simply name my inventory and I can pick it from my date range here, regardless of whether you're going by period, by month, by week. Name your inventory, save it, and we're ready to go. So for purposes of the training, I've actually named an inventory as December 31st of 2014. Now remember, all of the data that we've put in so far has been from January 1st to January 28th. In this example, we're working on a 4-week period instead of a calendar month. So I want to make sure that I have the beginning inventory from before that period started. So that's the first inventory we're going to do. So let's pull that off of the list I already have created. I have 12/31/2014. Now all of my inventory items are loaded. My next option is going to be to create my location filter. This is important because there are multiple items that can show up in multiple places. And the ideal way to take inventory is in sections. So we've already named our locations, and I have as defaults my bar, my dry storage, my freezer, my line, my server stations, and my walk-in. So I can pick any of those areas that I want to start, and I need to first clean up my inventory list for each area. So let's start with my walk-in. When you load any inventory for the first time in a brand new section, or when you go to take inventory your first time, you'll notice that your entire inventory list of everything that you purchase is going to be on this list. That's because we have no idea of knowing, regardless of what category you purchase the product in, what area of your restaurant it's located in. So the one and only time maintenance piece that you'll have to do for cleaning up your inventory list is going to happen the first time. And it's basically going to work like this. As I look up and down my list, I can identify the items that I use that are in my actual walk-in, but I can also identify the items that are not in my walk-in. So really quick, I know these bags aren't in my walk-in. I know that I don't keep the candy mints in my walk-in. And I don't keep containers in my walk-in. So I'm just going to fast forward through this and check off all of the other items that I do not keep in my walk-in so that we can get rid of them off of this list. Okay, now I've checked off all the items that are not in my walk-in, and we're ready to get rid of those items so that they no longer show up in our walk-in when we take inventory. We'll simply scroll up to the top after we've checked all of our boxes, and we will select Save Changes. Now you will see that all of those items we just deselected are no longer visible on the list, and now it's simply the items that are in our walk-in cooler. So we've hit our Save Changes. We can move on and start taking inventory in this area, or we can go to our other lists and we can start cleaning those up. Now in dry storage, I've already cleaned this one up, and I've also done the same for my bar. That's why the lists look different, but again, we keep certain items in multiple places. All right, so we're getting back to our walk-in. Now we're ready to take inventory in our walk. Remember, you can take your inventory on any mobile device, such as a tablet or even a large phone, up to and including your laptop computer, or you can always print off the inventory guide, but we recommend that you take it from the computer for the reason of the next functionality that we're going to show you. Now that I'm ready to take my inventory, one of the most critical elements in our program that saves a lot of time and frustration after the initial setup is what we call our auto sort function. The way that the auto sort function works is from any location that I'm in, when I'm ready to start taking inventory, I simply find the first item that I'm looking for on my list. The list is descending in alphabetical order from A to Z. The first place that I'm going to start with is my cheese. So I'll scroll to cheese and I see Monterey Jack block. When I first walk into my walk-in cooler on the left-hand side, first shelf, first thing I see is Monterey Jack cheese. So I'm going to click exactly how many I have, 1.2 cases on hand, and the next one I have is my queso fresco wheel. I've got 1.5 of those on hand. So what this sort sequence does is remembers the order in which I took my inventory. I took Monterey Jack first and my queso fresco second, which means the very next time I go to take inventory, the first item at the top of my list, instead of it descending alphabetical, is going to be my Monterey Jack, and then my queso fresco. This is our auto sort sequence element in the inventory program, and it is really, really nice that after the initial time you take inventory, search around for your items so that you can do them in sheet to shelf order when you enter them. Every subsequent time they will be put in that same sheet to shelf order and remembered. After we're done taking our inventory, we simply click Save Changes and we're ready to go. Now if I go and look at the items that I just did, you'll see that my cheese is no longer here. The reason why is my cheese has gone all the way down to the bottom, because the next time after we've cycled through every one of these items, this Monterey Jack will be on the top of the list, queso fresco will be second, and third and fourth, etc., making this one the start of the list. So that's how the program works in remembering and sorting your true sheet-to-shelf inventory. When we're ready to move on to the next section, we simply click our location filter under the same date, and now we can move to our dry storage. In my dry storage, the same thing is going to begin. I have all of my beverages in the first location when I walk in. My first one is my margarita mix. We've got 3 cases of that. I have 2.1 cases of my Bloody Mary mix. Next, I have my lemonade mix, followed by my pina colada mix, and cranberry juice, and so on and so forth as you take your inventory. I'm going to save these changes, and once again we can scroll to the bottom of the list and see that these showed up in the order. So remember, the ones above will go away. Okay, now we can save our changes, and we can move on to our next list. Next, I can do my freezer. Oh, now I see that my product is actually not been cleaned up in this particular instance. So I need to clean it up. Okay, so I've cleaned up my freezer list really quick. Again, now I'm going to save my changes. And now I can see that only my freezer items remain. And again, some of these items I keep in the freezer, some of these items I keep in the cooler, and some of these items I keep on the line. That's why for the first setup, we start with all of the initial inventory so that you can pick. And we're ready to move on to the next selection. Last, I am going to go to my line. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to clean up my line as well, but we do want to point out one of the features in inventory that is functional and probably of interest. We have our categories. Our categories are described as what we buy or what we make. There's the predetermined categories that you set up in your inventory when you import your inventory or when you have it done with our autoloader function. But additionally, you'll notice a category called batches. And our batches are the items that come from the items that we made. So here you can see my fajita beef, my fajita chicken, and my fajita marinade. They're all described as batches under my category. That's because we had to take physical inventory product to make these items, and they have a cost associated with them, and we want to make sure that we count them so that we can account for the inventory value on hand for these items as well. So that's simply why they're there. Again, we would have to go through and clean up this list, which we'll do all this offline, and we'll come back once all of our inventory is done so that we can show you how beginning and ending inventory work. And then we'll go on to some of the cooler functions where we can actually dive into our variance. Because remember, if we start with a beginning inventory value and we subtract that from our ending inventory value, and then we add that remainder to our purchases, we have our total inventory value for that time frame. When we take that total inventory and divide it by our sales, we're going to get our actual food cost. But also within the range of all that data, once we add in the cost to make each recipe and how many of every unit we sold, the Profit Pro Plus system will also tell us what our ideal food cost should have been. So now that we know our ideal and our actual food cost or true food cost, we'll be able to look at a variance report to see where did some products get misused, overportioned, suffer from waste, lost, theft, any number of combinations. We may not know what caused the product to spike in its variance, but we will at least be able to identify what items did spike in variance from where they should have been to where they actually ended. So stay tuned as we come right back for that. Okay, now we have taken all of our beginning inventory and our ending inventory, because remember, at first time setup, we will have to put in a beginning and an ending both. After each time, you'll only have to put in the ending, and the last period's ending will become the beginning. So now that we've done that, we're going to want to look at a couple of different options we have in our reporting functions. The first one, as promised, is going to be the variance. So by simply clicking on the variance report, this will take us to our opportunity to check our variance output on our items. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to enter in our range that we want to look at our variance from. Keeping in theme with the way that we've been tracking all of our data so far in this training, we're going to select our beginning inventory from 1231 and our ending inventory from 128. We'll simply generate the report by clicking the button, and here is all of that data. So to run through it really quick, if you look at our avocados, we began with an inventory value of 4 cases on hand, and we ended conveniently with 4 cases on hand. Based on our invoices that have been auto-loaded into the system, we purchased 70 cases of avocados over this 4-week period. But based on our PMix sales and our recipes, we should have used 63.36. Because we purchased 70, started and began with 4, those two zero each other out, meaning that out of those 70 cases, our ideal use should have been 63.36, which means somewhere along the way we lost 6.64 cases, or almost 10.5% of our total inventory value of this product has gone missing. Either it's been overportioned, it's been wasted, it's been spoiled, it's been thrown away, or possibly even given away without being rang up. Number of different issues and reasons, and you can go to ProfitProPlus.com and go to the Profit Pro University and look at all kinds of really cool tips and tricks and insightful training pieces that we have to be able to help identify these types of issues even further. But sticking with the variance report, you can see that the case price on average over this 4-week period was $26.17. Now, the reporting aggregates the value of your average price based on each individual invoice and each individual purchase. So even if right now your avocado price is $30, or at the beginning of the month it was, say, $24, throughout the spectrum of change from week to week, this price will average, giving you an accurate average price purchased over that period. Because that price is $26.14 and we lost 6.64 cases, it tells us that we have a cost associated with that loss of $173.84. So this gives us the opportunity to scroll through this entire report and find out where our challenges lie. So I put in a couple of other intentional examples to try to make some illustrations. These are illustrations to help you identify maybe some gaps that you have in the program. As you can see, our plastic to-go bags, we had a starting inventory and ending inventory. We have no purchases and we have no usage. That's because this is a non-food item. It falls into a different GL sequence category. And because every recipe doesn't have a rule for to-go, because we can't necessarily track the consistency of that, we omit it from our recipes, which is why we have a 0 count, a 0 variance, and in this case a 0 purchase and a 0 cost. Next we have Bloody Mary mix, and this one's also anomalous. You'll see that this is the first time that we have a negative cost associated. The reason why we have a negative cost associated is because our inventory values were different, right? We had a 0.10 difference with 0 purchases, 0 usage, and because we had 0 usage means we didn't track the sales of this item. So for this example, what we have done in theory is we have been working on a new Bloody Mary cocktail. It's not on the menu yet, but we know that the reason why we're missing some of that inventory is because we used it for training, research and development, and testing. That's why some of it's gone, and it's also why we don't have any usage yet because we haven't put it into our P-Mix and began to sell it. Next, I want to show you another really glaring opportunity, and you might see this occasionally as well. So this beef chuck roll, we had a beginning inventory of 13.5 pounds, an ending inventory of 11 pounds, but we have 0 purchases. However, we should have used 470.31 pounds to fulfill our recipes and our P-Mix sales. So when we see an item like this, immediately we notice that there's no purchases, so that would tell me I don't have my invoices loaded for this particular item. Now that could be for a number of reasons. For example, I could buy this beef chuck roll from a specialty meat vendor only, and maybe that specialty meat vendor doesn't do EDI or electronic data interchange, so my invoices weren't loaded up from them. I would need to go find my invoices from this period and manually load my invoice values for this item so that I could get some accurate usage. Up top, you can see that you also have multiple pages of this variance report, 7 in fact. And if you wanted to look at all of this information in one place, you could simply export to any selected format that we have. You could see different formats that are available. You simply select the one that you want and you hit export. And now I can go to my downloads and I can look at my entire variance report, all 7 pages in one spot. This is also something that I could print off or email to somebody else. Whatever different need you could possibly have, it's available on just about every single page and certainly on every single type of report that's available in your Profit Pro Plus program. So back over here to our variance report page, we also have the ability to print directly from this page. And if you want, you can always pull up a print preview, which will allow you to see how that data is going to be formatted by page. If you don't like that formatting, that's another great opportunity or reason why you might want to export this data into a different format. Now let's jump back over to our reports and talk about a couple of other options that are available after we've taken our inventory. We can go back to the inventory that we took. So for example, I'm going to go back to our beginning inventory, and when a location filter isn't selected, the entire inventory from what we took in every location on every product is listed here. This is where the export function comes in handy again. Up here we've got some pre-formatted exporting options where I can export my report directly to Excel, to a PDF, or to a CSV file. So for this illustration, I am actually going to export my report to Excel. And again, it'll show up here in my downloads, and I can select the item. And after I open this report, I then have the ability to manipulate it. So I've simply taken my report and I've sorted it by location, but I've also created an opportunity for myself to sort this by GL code. I can look by each GL, even though my locations are different, I have them sorted by our general ledger codes. This is a report that our accountants like to look at, but as far as our basic needs, we're a lot more inclined to want to look at the reporting by location so that we can assess what our inventory value is per location. I simply added up my totals. We did that for each category as a subtotal, and we totaled our entire value down here at the bottom to see what our total inventory value on hand was. Now there's a number of different techniques that you can use to manipulate or rearrange, sort, or view your data, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we've put the export function in there at just about every turn, so that you have the ability to manage your data into your already existing systems for accounting, for reporting, or for otherwise viewing and management practices. All right, so back to our program. I also have the ability to run this by area. If I want, I can look at my totals by each specific location. I have the ability to export each individual area as well. So the choice is really yours on how you manage all of this data and what you do with it to help integrate it into your traditional system. But these are just some of the cool tips and tricks that we've put into the systems to get the information you need to be able to impact your food cost and your inventory costs. There is one last little element that we want to show, and that is, now that I've taken my beginning and ending inventory, maybe I want to go take a new inventory altogether. So I will click on an inventory date that I've made up, and I will select new, and now you can see the items that I sequenced before for my bar, for example, are in the exact same order as they were the last time I took my inventory, and the same is true with each category. I could do my freezer, for example, and here are just my freezer items, again in the exact same sequence that I entered them the last time, creating that sheet to shelf option and giving you that opportunity to make the ease of taking inventory very, very simple, and to help with your ongoing accuracy and control of your food cost and your inventory controls. So that's going to wrap up this portion of the training on the Profit Pro Plus inventory, how to take stock and inventory and manage your variance and your inventory reporting. Thanks for tuning into this section, and we will see you in the next training.